Tackling insecurity was one of the major issues President Buhari prioritized when he was elected in 2015. 8 years down the line, as Buhari's tenure gradually comes to an end, many will ask if he has fared well in addressing the problem and if there has been an improvement. Recently, an organization dedicated to the tracking of violent incidents in the country, Nigeria Mourns, released its first quarter report of 2023, which showed that 1,230 people were killed in the country in the first quarter of the year 2023. The report also said that 79 security personnel died within the period, while 658 persons were abducted across the country. The report, published on its website, said banditry remained the most singular cause of violent deaths across the country, while an existing threat is a rise in extrajudicial killings and herdsmen-related killings. Joining us on this show this morning to discuss how Buhari's government has fared in keeping its promise of dealing with insecurity is Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu, former spokesperson of the Nigerian Air Force. Welcome to the morning show, Group Captain Shehu. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Abati. Good morning, viewers.
Okay, Captain, will you give President Buhari a pass mark or a fair mark with regard to how he has handled security in the country so far? His spokespersons say he has done very well, that he has changed the landscape. You know, Nigerians are better off today than they are. But what do you think as a security expert yourself?
Thank you very much. Now, in X-raying any regime or any government in any particular area, whether it is economy, whether it is security, I think it is only fair to first factor in at what stage did the regime come in and at what stage are they living. You know, it's only from seeing where we are coming from and where we are that we can make a fair and objective analysis whether a certain government has failed or it has succeeded, or even if it has succeeded, to what extent. With that premise, I would like to say that when the Buhari administration came in 2015, May 2015, up to now that it is rounding up, we have to look at what is the security situation it made on the ground. There is always need to remember that as far as I'm concerned, the Jonathan administration did not, was not confronted with the issue of banditry or kidnapping. The major, security threat that lasted during the Jonathan administration was the Northeast insurgency. I put this at the back because when you are talking about security in Nigeria, it's a multifaceted problem. You can, break it into 3 or 4 factors. First, the Northeast insurgency or counter-insurgency operation that is going between Nigerian armed forces and Boko Haram, or ISWAP, as you would like to call them. That is one aspect. And also then, there is the issue that crept in during the Buhari administration of banditry and kidnapping. Then again, the third aspect, there is the resurgence of the secessionist tendencies in the southeast of Nigeria. Now, when you look at all these 3 aspects, the record is a mixed bag. There is no doubt whatsoever that when you take the Northeast operations, the Buhari administration has recorded remarkable success in that area. How do we know that? The indices are very clear. When you are, this is a counter-insurgency operation, when you are looking, the indices you look at is number of or size of area that is controlled by the insurgents that has gone down. So certainly there's an improvement. The number of people that have been killed. Let me say that report that you quoted, we say when you say people killed, in a general security situation, it is said the measure of security or insecurity in the country is the number of people killed. But the devil is in the details. When you say the number of people killed, now you are talking about both the good guys and the bad guys. You are also talking about both own security forces and the insurgents. You are also talking about civilians. So whenever we're looking at this number, it's always good to remember that. When you say number of people killed, for any country, experts are interested. If people are being killed within a territory, it means it's a measure of security is not there. Now, when we look at the whole number, when I measure whole number now, you can see the numbers going down. When the Buhari administration came in 2015, the total number of deaths recorded by multiple sources. Again, here I have to emphasize, as an analyst myself, you don't just take one source. Because unfortunately, like in Nigeria, everything is politicized, everything is tribalized, everything is regionalized. So when you are doing your analysis, it is very difficult that you get genuine figures. Because some people have interest in hyping the figures. Some, again, will have interest in lowering the figures. So you, as a researcher, what do? You take multiple sources. Depending, again, on the pedigree of the sources, then you triangulate. So that's how you get your numbers. When the Buhari administration came in 2015, that's now I'm talking specifically with the Northeast insurgency. The insurgency started, we have to remember, in 2011. 2011, the number of people killed from May to December, 252. This increased 2012 to 1,055. In 2013, this moved to 4,065, almost triple times. In 2014, in 2014, the number moved to 8,213. Then in 2015, the number jumped up to 14,810. Now, 2015 is very important because that was a transition year between the Jonathan administration and the Buhari administration. So whatever happened in 2015, whether good or bad, has to be shared between the Jonathan administration and the Buhari administration. The clear timeline we can establish for the Buhari administration is 2016. 2016, from 14,810 in 2015, the number reduced drastically to 2,298, according to the figures that I have. From 2,298, 2016, 2017, again reduced to 1,603. There was a slight increase because of some major attacks against our armed forces in 2018, because we moved from 1,603 to 1,722. There was another slight increase in 2019, where the number moved to 2,494. In 2020, again, there was another slight increase with the number jumping to 2,720. However, in 2021, again, we saw another decline from the 2,720 of the previous year to 1,821. 2022, again, we had a slight increase in 2,000 to move from the 1,821 of 2021 to 2,078. We are just 5 months into 2023, and from my figures, we have a recorded death of 716. Now, again, I emphasize, these figures I am saying, it figures that comprises the bad guys and the good guys and the civilians who are killed. So for any number, again, for you to make the deduction, you have to find out, if you say 2,000 were killed in 2014, for example, you have to find the proportion of that 2,000. How many were our own personnel? How many were the enemy or adversary? How many were civilians? So this is the issue. But in any case, when you look at the numbers of deaths across, certainly there's a decrease in the numbers.
Okay.
If you are looking at the number of area held by Boko Haram, depending on your sources, some will tell you when Jonathan left, there were 12 local governments under Boko Haram. Some will say 6, some will say 5, some will say 4. These are the numbers that you see. But whatever, we are aware now as we are talking, and this has been confirmed by the governor of Borno State, at most, we have two local government areas in Borno State where we can say maybe Boko Haram is holding sway. So, size of area held, also there is an improvement, we can say.
Okay, all right, good, Captain Shehu. Thank you for breaking down the numbers for us. I think that's very important. But beyond the numbers, I'd like to take you back to what you said in when you first started speaking, that when the Buhari administration came into power in 2015. We were dealing with mainly the insurgents in the Northeast. However, what we see today is that insecurity has spread across the nation, and we've had other heads of insecurity come up. By heads, I mean other pockets. We have banditry, as you mentioned. We have kidnapping. We have the killings by herdsmen and farmer clashes. How can you say the situation is better when instead of having one that we're dealing with, we're now dealing with multiple aspects of insecurity? I mean, under this administration, we had the real attacks in Kaduna, Abuja, in Edo State. We've had situations that we didn't have in previous administrations. So I hear you with the numbers, but how do you justify the fact that beyond the Northeast alone, now we have insecurity across the nation where a number of Nigerians do not feel safe?
Thank you very much. With respect, you caught me in midstream. If you remember, I said it's a checkered flag. It's a checkered result when you look at the different aspects of security. I just started with the Northeast, but you prompted me to stop. Having finished with the Northeast, certainly the most challenging area that the Buhari administration is going to leave is the one that has to do with banditry and kidnapping in the Northwest, in the North Central. Even this morning, I think I can say within this week, we've had people being kidnapped or people being killed in Kaduna State, I think in Zamfara State. So definitely, that's why I started with it is a checkered flag. On the Northeast, you can score the government, it has done very much. But in the Northwest and the North Central, where we have banditry, including the secessionist tendencies in the Northeast, unfortunately, these are problems that the incoming administration will have to inherit. Now, we may speculate, why did, in addition to the Boko Haram that Buhari administration inherit, how did banditry and kidnapping come into it? Again, the reason is simple. We had an emerging security in the name of banditry and kidnapping appearing with the Buhari administration. But the capacity to fight these things, there was no commensurate increase in the capacity. Even without the Boko Haram, to be honest with you, when we look as experts in counterinsurgency, even without the other operations in the Northeast alone, from expert examples of counterinsurgency of the world, you probably need close to 250,000 soldiers to really hold the ground in the Northeast and make sure that Boko Haram, if they attack in Bama today, we don't chase them away and then our troops leave, then they come back. It means you have to have people on the ground. So even when you confine to the Northeast, the number, and this is taken from studies made across many countries that have fought insurgencies. The simple formula is this: for any insurgency, for you to really hold ground and bring it to an end, you have to calculate the number of the population that is in that area, and for each 1,000 of that population, you need at least 25 forces or 25 personnel to hold the ground for you. We never had that. Even in the Northeast, that is Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe, to really root Boko Haram and make sure they don't come and harass people. Because, again, counterinsurgency is not just holding the ground. As long as farmers cannot stay and farm, as long as people are running, you have not won. And the only confidence that people can have to do that is you have soldiers on the ground. We need nothing less than 250,000 soldiers to just control the Boko Haram. We never had that number. Up to now, we don't have that number. Then suddenly, other, non-state actors in the Northwest and North Central, they realized that there is gap in the capacity. So they could penetrate, and that is how it came into it. So this is the issue, is there. We have the deterioration is as a result of we do not have enough numbers on the ground. We do not have enough mobility equipment. When I mean mobility equipment is what make a force to respond. If they say 1 hour, there's an attack somewhere, within 1 hour, the forces, or 2 hours, or 3 hours maximum, the forces are there. When you look at all the attacks, our forces do not arrive on time. It's a function of logistics, it's a function of mobility, it's a function of communication.
Okay, Group Captain, good to see you again, and congratulations to you and the Air Force family as regards, the recent celebrations of the Air Force, and it was good to see the Air Force parade again. But I would like to drill into your data. I'm a very big data person. I'd like to ask you some questions as regards your data. How did you get your weighted average? What were your sources of collation points before you got your weighted average of those numbers you quoted? Number 2 will be who peer reviewed you on those data sets you quoted? Owing to the fact that, and what were the variables you factored? Owing to the fact that I've had dealings with people on the field across aid agencies, international agencies, charity groups on ground, and what they argue with you is that even those numbers are too low because over 50% of cases go unreported in mainstream media. Over 50% of attacks. In fact, out of 5 to 10 attacks, the ones that get reported are less than, just a small number. And it's because, based on the intensity, the veracity of the attack, and how quick word is to get out. There are places that were attacked that we'll never get to know. And a case in point is what's even happened in Burma. You saw how long before that story came to mainstream media. So I'd like to know who peer-reviewed you on this data you aggregated. What was your weighted average? What was your degree of error? You know, what was your margin of error? And all the other antecedents as regards data set. And what was your collation point sources? Can you mention all the variable sources you collected? Secondly, a part that I wanted you to talk about that you've not mentioned is the proliferation of small arms, inter-border crossing of small arms into our areas to be able to, how these non-state actors are getting, the porosity at which they're getting these small arms into our borders and all of that. You can also talk me through that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, the challenge of anybody analyzing security is that you have multiple sources are reporting. Now, and if sources, they have their methodology, in fact, they have their own motivations. It's just like the media. Every media has its own interest. So you, as the objective observer, you see, for example, I'm just speculating here now, or rather, I'm just giving us an example. If I'm the military leader, for example, it wouldn't make good news for me to say I lost so many soldiers or soldiers are dead. So me as an observer, when I'm taking the source from the military media, not that I will read, I have to read because they are participants in this and I have to consult their data, but I have that at the back of my mind. So I look for other objective observers. And again, I am talking frankly here, where in Nigeria, even where a media source is based, who are the owners of the media, again, might pose a challenge for you in actually finding the, the accurate information you are looking for. But again, as a researcher, you are not going to be in Burma, you are not going to be in Imo State to actually count who and who was killed, what happened. So you must rely, despite these limitations, you have to rely on these various sources with their different perspectives, with their different interests. Some may have interest of hyping numbers. Some may have interest of lowering numbers. Some may be objective. So it is up to you now in your observation to look at the various sources. Some are international sources, some are national sources. With due respect, sometimes I find it is even because of our, diversity, our different way politicization of security. Sometimes I consult both national and international, but I find in practice that sometimes the international, again, the international, it depends whether it's NGO, whether it is governmental, sometimes we get more, objectivity. But again, you will not know. For example, you call me on this interview on this agency that you reported as, it is called National Day of Mourning. To be honest with you, I've never heard of this organization. But when I checked, the first thing like I do in medicine, I checked that when it's a website, you see about. That's about that organization. When I checked about this national, and you can do the same, it didn't say much. Who are the owners? Because here, I'm very suspicious. When you have an agency that is not saying who are the owners, who are the people, then you have something to hide. I want to check a site, and that about, tab. I want to see when was it formed, when did they start, what is its interest. It is not there. However, I didn't throw away, the something they gave. But what I do is triangulate. For example, they claim that 1,000, they said about, in fact, they said at least, this is exactly from the report, at least 1,230. For me, as a security analyst, that at least, it even shows me lack of certainty. Right. On the other hand, when I checked other sources, I have precise, for example, there is this site, Nigerian Security Tracker. It is an American website, and they started collating the number of deaths by month, by week, since from May 2019 to date. Not only that, they break by month, by week. They tell you how many of those figures are Boko Haram, how many figures are bandits, how many figures are armed forces that were killed. They even tell you the number of attacks that took place under this. I find that very useful. It's not the only one. I also use Accolade. There's a site called Accolade. So when you triangulate these things, now as opposed to this NPOM, Nigeria Morning, that said at least 1,230. What I find is NST is clear. There are 1,951 people across Nigeria that were killed in the same first quarter that we're talking about. So this is the challenge you have. But as a researcher, yours is not, even though, yes, I will always be a military man, but honest, now I'm living a different life. I'm a security consultant. I'm a security researcher. My word is my bound. I am not expected, and I will not do that to go out of a lie either to garnish, but I consult all these things. For example, I cannot report on Boko Haram without listening what the Nigerian army or the defense headquarters spokesman is saying. It will not be fair. But I will take. But when I take, I don't swallow line, hook, and sinker.
Captain.
You know, I interrogated against other sources. But despite having all done that, again, you mentioned the issue of lack of communication. Ours is not a technology-driven society. Certainly, you will miss some things.
Captain.
So definitely what you come at the end is what I call an indicative figure, but not a definitive figure. Captain. But it's an indicative figure that was arrived at after rigorous examination of all the sources and triangulating.
Captain, if you can hear me, we have to wrap this up now. But if you can,
I can hear you.
If you can manage this in 30 seconds, what advice will you give to the incoming administration with regard to the challenge of insecurity? Very briefly, 30 seconds, if it is possible.
Straight off, security sector reform. What I mean by security sector, it means the police, the intelligence services, and the military. Unfortunately, this is one thing that this outgoing regime was not able to do. Despite there is a reform committee on the police that has its report not implemented, there's a security report of the armed forces that is not implemented. This is why they will start. Increase in number. I'm happy all the presidential contestants say increase in number. But increase in number to what? The Buhari administration in the last speech said they have already 60,000. Total, by my estimation, we have less than 250,000.
And thank you for just going straight to the point in terms of reform of the security sector. Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu, former spokesman of the Air Force, of the Nigerian Air Force.